Hey everybody, it's Party Elite here with another episode of Total Breakdown. This one is absolutely insane, going right to the death, pitting Hadres, Dark Elves against the Dwarfs of Montcaz. We begin, of course, with talk of composition and deployment, and there are some very interesting decisions on the field today, in my humble opinion. Let's take a look at the Dark Elves. First, we have Malekith in charge on a chariot, and that makes him anti-infantry as well as armor-piercing, of course. A good call against the Dwarfs. And then in the center here, we have a Sorceress of Death, bringing in that Soul Blight, and also bringing in Spirit Leech for magical assistance and damage. Up front, you can see we've got some Bleak Swords over here, and over here, and then we've got some Blackguard Corsairs tucked away in the trees over here as well. Can't see them, but trust me, they're there. And then we've got these Reaper Bolt Throwers up front, ready to fire away right from the get-go. So 3 artillery pieces coming in from the Dark Elves. We've got some Hargoneth Executioners back here, armor-piercing and anti-infantry as well. And all the way to the right over here, you can see we have these Harpies up in the air, as well as these 2 units of Shades with Great Swords. Good picks over there. They are armor-piercing from range and armor-piercing and anti-infantry when they're in melee. They're, of course, able to stock up and get some damage in with some nice flanking maneuvers. And let's take a look at the Dwarfs right now. They are being led by a Rune Lord on foot, and as you can see, their front line consists of some miners with blasting charges to the left, some miners with blasting charges to the right, and a center of Hammerers, Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, and then these Dwarf Warriors as well. Right behind that front line, you can see we've got some Thunderers over here and over here. Then we've got some Rangers in the middle and some Rangers to the left, followed by some more miners with blasting charges to the left and to the right. And bringing up the rear, we've got these Dwarf Warriors, these Giant Slayers. We've got some Dwarf Warriors to the right over here, as well as some regular Slayers tucked away in the trees. And then we've got the Goblobber Grudge Thrower Regiment of Renown already firing away, as we've got the Reaper Bolt Throwers firing away as well. So that Goblobber is lobbing gobs, as it were, towards some of these Bleak Swords, trying to get some damage done to this unit. I think those are the auto-targeted units over here. Unfortunate misses, not doing too much work, but you can see the Reaper Bolt Thrower responding and hitting the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers over here, doing a lot of damage in response. Good pick over there. These guys are a very threatening unit, and you can see already bringing their health down by about 25%, trying to eliminate this threatening unit right from the get-go as the Goblobber continues to fire away and finally get some damage into the Bleak Swords. But the Reaper Bolt Thrower doing a lot more work over here, getting a fair bit of work into this threatening unit, and in comes the Master Rune of Negation. Very good call over there, getting that 44% damage resistance in there right away so that damage is minimized. But the Reaper Bolt Throwers don't care. They're still firing away, trying to get some work done, as the Goblobber now decides to continue firing instead at the Reaper Bolt Thrower. Instead, again, doing a little bit of damage there, trying to eliminate the artillery pieces. Not a bad call. Meanwhile, over here you can see we actually have the Shades in position now to open fire, getting some shots into these miners with blasting charges, and the other unit of Shades with their Great Swords getting their shots into this other unit of miners with blasting charges. So good picks coming in from that right flank over there. And meanwhile, to the left over here, you can see the Thunderers are actually closing the gap towards one of the Reaper Bolt Throwers, hoping to maybe shut them down from range, while the Harpies as well pushing in to shut down some artillery from the Dwarfs over here. You can see they're getting pretty aggressive, and these Slayers brought out from these trees to, again, just, I guess, position and maybe frighten these Harpies away. We have these Slayers right over here. We have these Giant Slayers ready to respond as well if those Harpies get a little too adventurous. And you can see over here on the topic of adventure, these Shades got very adventurous, and they did a lot of work actually. These miners with blasting charges down to about 50% health. These miners with blasting charges as well down by about 25%. And now these Shades actually need to pull back into safety, as the miners with their blasting charges might actually use those blasting charges to cause a fair bit of damage. And take a look at this Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, slowing these Shades down, trying to prevent their escape, and the Rangers as well firing away from a safe distance over here, trying to get some damage done as these guys try to turn around and pull back into safety after that last volley that does a tremendous amount of damage to this one unit of miners with blasting charges, bringing their health and morale down to just 25%. Beautifully done. But now it's time to get the hell out of there, and you can see these Shades do turn around and decide to pull back into safety as those blasting charges get a little too close. While to the left here, you can see those Thunderers are getting some shots into these Reaper Bolt Thrower crew members over here, trying to get some damage done and scare this Reaper Bolt Thrower off as it continues to fire away and get a lot of work done to the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers over there. So you can see those shots going in, causing a lot of work, while these shots coming from the Thunderers looking absolutely gorgeous. I love the look of the Thunderer shots over here as they fire away at the Reaper Bolt Thrower, again causing a tremendous amount of damage, bringing health right down to about 25%, bringing morale down to about 10% or so. So that Reaper Bolt Thrower unit is willing to give up on the fight. You can see it is wavering right now, but it has done a fair bit of work. The Norgrimling's Ironbreakers in the center there, very low on health at about 50% right now. So beautiful work there, and you can see at the same time we've actually got the Harpies pushing in to try and shut down the Goblobber. Good call over there, taking a giant risk, but you can see we have the Rangers turning around immediately to respond. We have the Dwarf Warriors and these Slayers over here as well, just coming around from all sides into these Harpies, trying to get those Harpies to give up on this very aggressive play here, and the Goblobber continues to fire away, but good call there by the Harpies trying to shut that nonsense down, and you can see the miners over here actually give up on the chase after these Shades with Greatswords, but the Shades with Greatswords immediately noticing that, turn around and push right back in to get some damage in, and you can see the Nurglings Ironbreakers very low on health continue to get shot at, while over here Malekith pushes forth to try and scare these Thunderers back, doing so successfully, but needing to pull back into safety lest he gets picked off by some of these Rangers and the Thunderers as well, so he does pull back into safety, manages to dodge most of those shots, takes very little damage, and you can see again we've got these Shades firing away, trying to take care of these miners with blasting charges on the right flank, as the Harpies here have been very well taken care of, and they pull back as they are routing very low on health, just 25% left, and now you can see some more aggression here as these Giant Slayers as well as these Rangers and Thunderers push up to that left flank, I think maybe chasing after Malekith, getting a little aggressive over there. Well, over here as well, you can see this giant clump of miners with blasting charges and Rangers as well get shot at by these Shades with their great swords. But the Shades are being very careful over here. They don't want to get shut down. They are taking a fair bit of damage over here. You can see they're at 50% health, so they want to play it safe, of course, and at the same time, we've actually got some responses coming in from the Reaper bolt throwers as well, firing now at these Rangers with their anti-infantry shots instead, again, hoping to take care of a relatively threatening ranged unit. Against ranged units are scary because they not only cause physical damage, but they also cause morale damage, and I think the Reaper Bolt Throwers figure they've done enough work on Grimling's Ironbreakers here. They've weakened them up, they've softened them up rather, and so they won't be too much of a challenge, and now the Shades again pulling back into safety away from those Rangers, away from these blasting charges, or the potential of the blasting charges, hoping to find an opportunity to turn around and fire away again as soon as possible, while here you can see we've got these Giant Slayers pushing in alongside these Thunderers. The Giant Slayers hoping to protect, to shield these Thunderers as they fire away freely, or they hope, at the Reaper Bolt Thrower over here. So you can see the Thunderer just kind of pushing up that Thunderer unit, lining up their shots and hoping to get some damage done, while the Giant Slayers again pushing forth as well, hoping to intercept whatever might come in, and you can see the Bleak Swords actually pushing in to respond as the Thunderers get a nice, beautiful volley once again right into the Reaper Bolt Thrower unit over here, and again causing a fair bit of damage in that one volley, bringing health down by about 25%, hoping to eliminate this unit that still has a fair bit of its ammunition left and is causing a lot of trouble for the Dwarfs back in their home base, if we can call it that. Meanwhile, you can see over here the Harpies decided to get adventurous once more. They rallied a few moments ago and they decided to push in and dive in on the Goblobber once more, hoping to again eliminate that artillery piece as quickly as possible and reduce its, remove it so it's not causing any damage. Meanwhile, you can see over here the Bleak Swords and the Blackrock Corsairs continue to push forward, scare these Giant Slayers back, and the Thunderers try to get another volley in, hoping to get a little bit of damage, hoping to get enough damage into the Reaper Bolt Thrower over here. So in come those shots, and take a look at that, bringing health right down to 50%, bringing morale down to 50% as well. But now Malekith as well as these Bleak Swords and Blackrock Corsairs push forth. Malekith as well looking for an opportunity to get involved somewhere, while the Reaper Bolt Thrower continues to fire away now at this glorious clump that's being presented, this clump of Thunderers as well as Dwarf Warriors. They stuck together for far too long, and a couple of shots from the Reaper Bolt Throwers reduced health to, as you can see, about 25% and 10% between the two units, so a fair bit of damage being done there. Nice pick, good awareness, seeing that clump and picking it right away for both units of Reaper Bolt Throwers. And on the topic of awareness, again, these miners with blasting charges pull back into formation, and so these Shades again push forth and try to get some damage in of their own, while up front over here you can see the Blackrock Corsairs and the Bleak Swords pull back into the safety away from these Thunderers and those Rangers as well, but they continue to fire away, hoping to get some damage done to eliminate some of these units before they're able to do too much work. And take a look at this, these miners with blasting charges do not stand a chance. In comes another volley, an immediate rout over there as these miners with their blasting charges push a little bit too close for comfort, and the Shades pull back into safety once more, and the Thunderers continue to be focused down by the Reaper Bolt Throwers. You can see this Reaper Bolt Thrower unit almost ready to give up on the fight as the Thunderers continue to fire away, doing a lot of damage once again, just eliminating the artillery pieces as quickly as possible. And you can see to the right over here, these Reaper Bolt Throwers are actually out of ammunition, so they are a little useless now, so this is the only one that needs to be shut down. Meanwhile, the Harpies had to give up on this amazing play, but unfortunately not amazing enough, as these Harpies rout away and the Goblobber is still very much alive, still able to fire away, and actually decides in a moment's time to turn around and fire at these Shades, who continue to harass these miners with blasting charges, getting a fair bit of damage there, reducing their health to about 50%, and even further so with that volley, while over here you can see the Reaper Bolt Thrower giving up on the fight, completely eliminated, beautifully done, while back here you can see the Harganeth Executioners, as they push forth, do get hit by the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, a good pick for a target there, get that damage in there, slow them down as well on the approach, while over here you can see we finally have some blasting charges being used against these Blackrock Corsairs as they try to dodge those blasting charges, try to stay safe, and these Bleak Swords as well pulling off to the side, I think, trying to dodge those blasting charges as they come in, not only from the miners, but also from Nurgling's Ironbreakers. And you can see Malekith actually pushing forth over here, trying to get some work done, pop stand your ground to help out in the situation, but the Giant Slayers are right there, very quick to respond as the Thunderers continue to fire away as well at the Harganeth Executioners as well, hoping to eliminate that very scary unit, again, anti-infantry and armor piercing, but these Harganeth Executioners quite wisely tucking into the trees to keep them safe from from all of that ranged fire. So again, great awareness, great use of terrain as Malekith over here hits these miners and then immediately pulls back into safety as those Giant Slayers are trying to close the gaps. And you can see over here as well, we've got these Shades trying to take care of these miners with blasting charges. Those blasting charges might never go off, and the Rangers as well trying to respond and scare these Shades off, as over here we have these Bleak Swords, and these Bleak Swords as well pushing in to try and shut down the Rune Lord, or pushing even further and take care of some of these Thunderers, maybe even these Hammerers that are extremely scary, of course. But on this left flank here, you can see Soul Stealer comes down to cause a fair bit of damage and also replenish the hit points on Malekith as these Bleak Swords, or these Blackheart Corsairs, sorry, get smashed by those blasting charges, and these Bleak Swords as well get absolutely destroyed by some of those blasting charges, but they continue to sort of persist. They want to close the gap to these Ironbreakers over here. And meanwhile, in the center here, you can see we get the Rune Lord popping Master Rune of Negation, trying to keep these Hammerers and Dwarf Warriors alive, but we also get Spirit Leech activated atop the Rune Lord coming in from the Sorceress, of course, trying to cause a little bit of damage over here, try to take care of Dwarven leadership as quickly as possible. As you can see, we have these lines closing, these Bleak Swords trying to get into these Thunderers over here, and these Thunderers over here as well. We've got the Shades as well, still firing away at these Rangers, trying to eliminate that ranged unit. And at the same time as all of this is happening, we have the Hargoneth Executioners pushing forth with some great aggression. They want to make sure they take advantage of Murderous Mastery. Murderous Prowess and Murderous Mastery just kicked in, so it's almost poetic, the timing on this, waiting for that to kick in before melee kicks off in earnest. You can see Malekith back here as well, trying to push right through these Dwarf Warriors over here, hoping to get a fair bit of damage done as those Shades continue to take care of these Rangers over here. The Hargoneth Executioners again trying to close these gaps. Take a look at the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers over here, absolutely shut down as the Hargoneth Executioners close the gaps, bringing their armor-piercing and anti-infantry capabilities. Norgrimling's Ironbreakers are not going to have a good time, and at the same time, we actually get Soul Blight activated in this clump as well on the left, reducing weapon damage, but more importantly, perhaps armor, as well as these Blackheart Corsairs coming from the side to shut down the miners with their blasting charges. The Hargoneth Executioners over here tied down by the Rune Lord, and some shots coming in from these Thunderers, as well as the Rangers over here causing a fair bit of damage. Take a look at their health drop over there, and at the same time, we actually have these Hammerers back here maybe at the wrong spot right now. They need to be pushed forward. They are a very scary unit. The Hammerers staying alive right now, keeping clear, obviously, of all the range support that the Shades have brought and all the Reaper Bolt Thrower fire, but they need to get involved in the front lines sooner rather than later. And as you can see, Malekith is being hit by a lot of blasting charges over here. He needs to pull back into safety as these Giant Slayers try to close the gap. He decides to pull forth over here and pushes right through these Dwarf Warriors, causing a fair bit of damage, getting the morale to drop significantly. And that left flank is more or less won by the Dark Elves. We've got Routs, we've got Shatters, but unfortunately these miners with blasting charges and these Slayers and Giant Slayers all come in to respond, and Malekith has to find another place to get involved, while over here you can see these Hargoneth Executioners are in a terrible situation as the Reaper Bolt Thrower pushes in to try and shut down, I think, the Thunderers over here. And now we've got the Shades pushing in as well, having taken care of these Rangers and these miners with blasting charges. They're not able to push in and shut down some of this range support, while over here as well you can see we actually get the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, rather, focusing in on the Hargoneth Executioners. Again, a great pick. While over here you can see Malekith is actually trying to push through and shut down these Thunderers. Manages to do that, but the Rune Lord is right there to respond. Starts beating away at Malekith, but he has activated Stand Your Ground to try and keep some of his units here fighting, and of course to keep melee defense up as well. And you can see the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin has done a lot of work to these Hargoneth Executioners to the left over here. They're almost completely taken care of. They are broken right now, and these Giant Slayers are pushing in, I think, to finish the job. As over here you can see the Shades continue to push in and close the gaps over here. They managed to scare these Thunderers off, caused a lot of damage over there. Now they need to close the gaps to some of these Rangers perhaps, or even the Hammerers over here, as we've got the Bleak Swords pushing in to get a full surround over there. While back over here you can see the Rune Lord once more coming in with the Master Rune of Negation, reducing the amount of damage that all the Dwarfs are taking in this central clump. And the Thunderers, I think, pushing to get a nice angle of fire into Malekith perhaps, as over here the Rangers and the Shades actually close gaps towards each other. The Rangers are out of ammunition, so they have to push into melee, trying to intercept these Shades with their great swords. But the Shades with great swords are, of course, going to cause a tremendous amount of damage. They are armor-piercing, they are anti-infantry, and we've got these Bleak Swords coming in to respond with a nice rear charge here as well. Meanwhile, back over here, you can see we've got these Dwarf Warriors giving up on the fight. A good cast of Soul Blight over here is helping Malekith. The Hargoneth Executioners and even the Sorceress cause a fair bit of damage. The Rune Lord, you can see, is in a trouble situation, and we actually have the Reaper Bolt Thrower crew here pushing in to intercept these Hammerers, I think, trying to stop these Hammerers from getting through, but they don't really care about the Reaper Bolt Thrower crew. They push right through, and at the same time, we actually have these Rangers giving up on the fight as those Bleak Swords came in with a nice rear charge, a full surround, and these guys are giving up on the fight, of course. And now the Hammerers are acting in full over here, bashing the skulls of these Hargoneth Executioners. They're going to cause a lot of damage, hammering away at the Dark Elves over here, while over here you can see the Giant Slayers continue to give chase to Malekith, who continues to, of course, drive around in his chariot and try to get as much damage as possible. And you can see we have another shatter over here as well, as these Rangers give up on the fight completely. The Shades now pushing into these Miners with blasting charges, again, armor-piercing and anti-infantry, so the Miners do not stand a chance, and these Dwarf Warriors as well will have a very tough time as those Bleak Swords come in as well. But take a look over here as these Hammers make very quick work of the Hargoneth Executioners. The Hargoneth Executioners are not having a fun time, while over here these Thunderers are able to fire away at the central clump over here, trying to get some damage, I think, into these Bleak Swords, or even these Shades, try to get damage into whatever target presents itself, while Malekith is pushing in again, hoping to get a charge over here, I think, to get these Dwarf Warriors to give up on the fight. And a nice charge we do get with Stand Your Ground being activated at the same time, increasing melee defense and leadership for these Shades, as well as these Bleak Swords over here, hoping to keep them in the fight as Malekith continues to drive right through into these Thunderers, and again, hoping to scare them off by causing enough damage. The Rune Lord over here, very low on health, very low on morale as well, but Malekith in a trouble spot as well, right down to about 25% health. And take a look at this. The Hammerers have completely taken care of the Sorceress, they've taken care of the Hargoneth Executioners as well, and they've only lost 25% of their health, so they've got a lot of work to do still, and a lot of capability to do just that, while the Rune Lord over here is being taken care of. He's down to about 25% health now as well, as Malekith gets a nice charge into him, as well as these Giant Slayers and the Dwarf Warriors over here, but the Giant Slayers, of course, immediately turn around and start getting some work done into Malekith as well, as the Rune Lord pops a Master Rune of Negation, again, trying to keep this clump alive over here, as these Thunderers get very quickly taken care of thanks to these Shades with their great swords, and Malekith immediately pulls back and goes right through these Slayers, hoping to eliminate them, and then immediately disengages, of course, quite wise to do so, as these Slayers and Giant Slayers are both anti-large, and the Giant Slayers are armor-piercing as well. But Malekith turns around, tries to drive right through the Rune Lord over here, again causing a fair bit of damage to health and to morale, and then again pushing away, trying to stay away from these Slayers and Giant Slayers, while these Shades are pushing in, I think, in the hopes of holding these Giant Slayers in place, but the Rune Lord wants to intercept those Shades' aggression, while we have Malekith over here shutting down these Thunderers, hopefully once and for all, as they rout away, and now taking a big risk over here, driving right through these Hammerers, again, needing to take care of these Hammers, because these Hammerers can cause a lot of hurt. They've got great melee attack stats, 47, weapon strength of 55, it is armor-piercing as well, but if Malekith can charge through like he just did, he will cause a lot of damage, and the Hammer is actually brought down to about 50% health right now, and Malekith, of course, needs to push through. He needs to keep pushing and does exactly that, doesn't want to get caught up, but the Hammerers do give chase. They want to get as much damage in there as possible. Well, over here you can see we actually have these Shades giving up on the fight, so now these Giant Slayers are able to come in from another angle, but Malekith just carves right through, wants to just trample these Giant Slayers, hit the Rune Lord if possible, and again pull away into safety. He might drive through the Dwarf Warriors over here to try and eliminate a unit. I think that was actually collateral damage. I don't think that was intentional, throwing that one Dwarf back, but you can see now these Rangers have returned to the fight, and they're actually opening shots into Malekith as well, and he needs to be very careful. Turns around, tries to get a nice charge into the Rune Lord, does so, gets a fair bit of damage in, pops Stand Your Ground as well to increase leadership and melee defense. We've got these Bleak Swords returning to the fight as well, while back here we've got some Hargoneth Executioners getting charges into the Hammers, but that's not going to do much as they fall apart. Malekith again drives in for a nice charge, manages to get a good charge over here, but needs to get out of here before the Giant Slayers and the Rune Lord are able to close the gap. Malekith is able to get away, and unfortunately there's no, Master Rune of Wrath and Rune or anything right now. It would have been absolutely wonderful to see that come in to slow him down and help these Giant Slayers close the gap, but instead we get these Bleak Swords closing the gap instead. A nice interception over here, allowing Malekith to buy some time, pull back, find another angle, and charge right through into the Rune Lord once again. And you can see we've got these Dwarf Warriors shattering as Malekith does that, and again he needs to pull right through as these Bleak Swords are very quick to give up on the fight. The Hammer is doing a lot of work there, but you can see they're all very low on health. Malekith needs to just manage himself extremely well over here, and that's exactly what we're seeing, turning around, getting another charge into the Rune Lord, hoping to eliminate Dwarven leadership and hoping to drop morale by enough to actually cause some routes. But of course those Giant Slayers are unbreakable, so they persist with their chases, and in comes another Master Rune of Negation over here, trying to keep these dwarves alive as Malekith continues to, figure eight. A beautiful skating over here as he tries to eliminate all of these units as they are clumped up. His chariot can do a lot of work, but you see he does get caught up in melee over here. He needs to pull away. He needs to disengage. The Giant Slayers are getting a fair bit of work done. He is taking a fair bit of damage, Malekith, but maybe he'll stick it through. These Rangers are out of ammunition, so they try to close the gap as well, maybe get a nice surround on Malekith and reduce his morale. He is right down to below 400 hit points, but the Rune Lord as well, very low on health. He is trying to get away the Rune Lord, but in comes a charge from Malekith, trying to trample that Rune Lord and come out on top. The Rune Lord very close to giving up on the fight, and he does decide to give up. Malekith might turn this around. He has just about 300 hit points over here. We have the Hammerers still alive. The Rangers have closed the gap as well, and off in the distance you can see we have these Miners with their blasting charges closing the gap. They do have their blasting charges available as well, so if they get a nice toss of their blasting charges, we can see Malekith completely giving up on the fight potentially. This is not over yet. In come those blasting charges, and Malekith is in a bit of a trouble spot over here as they explode all over him, bringing his health to just below 300, but he manages to drive right through these Hammerers and the Miners, and the Dwarves give up on the fight. A Pyrrhic victory for the Dark Elves. Now, a prolonged period of skirmishing and exchanging artillery fire worked very well for the Dark Elves here, who were able to trigger murderous prowess just as melee began, more or less. The Shades with great swords were excellently used to eliminate units one at a time and to run away when chased. The Dwarf Thunderers and Rangers did very well to thwart the Reaper Bolthor threats as well, but unfortunately, perhaps not well enough to prevent the reduction of Norgrimling's Ironbreakers to about 50% health before they were able to engage in melee. Presenting clumped up units was a big problem as well, but despite all that, the Dwarf Hammerers stood strong right until the end and provided a viable threat, a threat that Malekith was able to thwart with some great micromanagement. The balance of power was against the Dark Elves throughout the whole battle. At one point, they had 25% of that balance bar, but with some great persistence, they were able to take the day. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to highlight such amazing battles from the community. I'd also like to thank all of my patrons for supporting this channel on a month-to-month basis, making a huge difference keeping us alive and running smoothly. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.